Mr. Prateek Saxena. Prateek Saxena drew on 25 years of experience in energy sector to create Hygge Energy, of which he is a co-founder and CEO. A young and talented tech team allows Prateek to feel confident about delivering world-class products and enabling Hygge Energy to be included among the leading technology companies of the world. He has held leadership positions at several Ontario-based undertakings. He designed and implemented a demand response program for 150 megawatt deployment for Ontario Power Authority, managed the province's first smarter meter project, developed and executed a sub-metering business model for high-rise condo markets, and ran the operations for energy management company. Today, Mr. Prateek will discuss how to use rooftop solar to achieve net zero goals. Delegates, let's welcome Mr. Prateek.
Thanks, Harsha, and thank you. It's a privilege and honor to be here on this call. What I will be talking about is more tactical, and it would be all based on the personal experience of implementing projects, especially in India. And I would divide I don't have any presentation to share, but it would be more talking about the personal experiences while implementing these type of projects. So it all looks very good when you put the vision, and it's good to have vision. I applaud the government of India for having one world, one sun, one grid and one nation. And this is a fantastic vision, but how do we achieve there? How we go from today to 2070 or even 2050? So COP26, 150 countries signed net zero targets. What does that mean? Simple statistics. McKinsey believes that it is a $2 trillion investment every year until 2030 for these countries to achieve net zero. It's a huge, huge investment which has to come. From where it is going to come? So that's challenge number one. Challenge number two, for India especially, although we are trying to achieve net zero, are we also addressing energy poverty? So what energy poverty means? There are still 2 billion people in globally who do not have access to electricity. That's point number one. Point number two, there are another 2 billion. So there are 4 billion people who do not have access to reliable electricity. And I'll give you, quote some examples from our projects which we are doing in India. So are we using this opportunity of integrating renewable to avoid or solve the problem of energy poverty? The third issue which I'm going to talk about is technical challenges and the business model challenges which we are facing on ground while implementing these type of policies and visions. So with that, let's come to COP26 and what does net zero means. So are there any tools where these municipalities who are the owner of these targets to achieve net zero? So what it would take for communities to become net zero? So what we are doing is, from our perspective, and Hygge Energy is into peer-to-peer energy trading for renewable, and we are promoting rooftop solar-based peer-to-peer for the communities. What does that mean? I again want to highlight the statistics. Globally, no country other than Italy has achieved 10% of rooftop solar. Even India is struggling to achieve rooftop solar targets. California, which is supposed to be sunshine state, has achieved only 4% after spending $80 billion on rooftop solar. And still, like today, as of today, they are thinking of rescinding net metering programs. So there is definitely challenges on promoting rooftop solar. And why rooftop solar is important or critical, I'll quote the example from our project in, actually we did not complete the project, but we did a study on Kaza Spiti area in Himachal Pradesh. And so there is this transmission line, which is about 300 kilometers, and which carries 15 kV of electricity to 60 towns or villages in that valley. Now, the challenge is the voltage invariably drops, and these villages get 4 to 6 hours of electricity only. So this is what I call energy poverty. So that's point number one. Point number two, Kaza Spiti, that area is fantastic for solar radiation. So how do we integrate renewable energy to this grid and improve the energy poverty? And third is how we make them carbon net zero, like carbon emission neutral. And so with all those things, the challenges which we faced there was, integration of renewable energy. So one, Himachal has got flow of stream generation. So I think Raghavendra spoke about the hydro flow of stream. So this is about 150 kilowatt within that area, and they find it extremely difficult to integrate because it's not reliable. So I think Raghavendra and Shirish both spoke of having batteries. So battery is the right solution where this variable generation, renewable generation can be absorbed in the battery. The second challenge which this area is facing is when there is an outage because of the snowfall, it takes almost weeks for the crew to reach there and resolve the challenges. So what was the need? So the need was, can we integrate these villages on a peer-to-peer model where we take out the big loads? So the big loads in these villages were hospitals and the police stations. They were the only two big loads. So can we take these big loads and put them on the renewable generation with a smart grid integration, and then let the villages, because in the hills villages are one above the other, so it is easy to share between the two and create resiliency. And so that's something what we decided. But then we faced the challenge of having the switches on the transmission grid where it can sort of isolate the outage and let other villages continue to have power, and the village which has got the outage issue can be addressed exclusively. So all those technical issues we had. Now coming to the business model, rooftop solar is not getting promoted because it eats away the top line of a utility. And if we all understand, utilities incentive is return on asset, it's not return on investment. So they get compensated by the regulators on how much asset they are putting, and they have to ensure that they get a proper return on the asset. So one thing which is happening is with solar, the top line is getting eaten away by rooftop solar. That's point number one. Point number two is, while they are trying to maintain the return on assets, the price of electricity for non-solar customers goes up. And this is a very classic example where Arizona in the United States, which is supposed to be the best sunshine state, has the utilities have gone to the court and got the stay order for rooftop solar. And so think about the business model challenges. So what we are implementing right now is where we are partnering with the utility, and we are ensuring that they get compensated for bringing resiliency to the community where they own the battery. And then that way we are able to increase the penetration of rooftop solars within a community, not 4%, not 5%, not 10%, but up to 50%. And once we do that, then it takes away the load on the transmission grid, and which is now available to provide reliable electricity to industry and large industrial customers, which increases the resiliency and the reliability within any country, within any state, within any city, or within any town. And that's this is the whole objective of removing energy poverty, which is one of our passion. Hygge Energy is very focused on removing energy poverty and focusing on that. I would encourage for you guys to look at our project, which we did in Meghalaya. This is a place called Soharam and near Cherrapunji. Now, who would think that a solar would be effective in a place like Cherrapunji, which has got the highest rainfall anywhere in the world? And we did that. We took that challenge, and we ensured in August, when there was 2 weeks of non-stop rains, this whole project was still providing electricity to the school. And this school is a skill training program under Chief Minister's program. And it trains the kids on lathe machines, grinding machines, and the machine operation. And so it's very focused on a skill which requires very limited time, high use of power. So thinking about microgrid and solar and providing high power consumption, you need technical solution, and that's where Hygge is very focused on. So that's the second project or technical challenges which I would encourage you guys to look at. The third technical challenges, both Raghavendra and Shirish ji spoke about EVs and EV charging. Just to give you the magnitude of this problem, so we are working with Indian Oil Corporation, and this is a public information. So the challenge Indian Oil is facing is very, very simple, but yet very complicated. So Government of India wants them to install EV chargers at their petrol pumps. These petrol pumps have got the distribution transformer with a capacity of 10 kilowatt to 15 kilowatt. Now, a fast DC charger for EV charging purpose is 15 kilowatt, or most often it is 50 kilowatt. Now, how they are going to meet that requirement? The only solution is to upgrade their distribution transformer, for which it would take them, this is practical experience, and what we have learned from our projects is it take anywhere from 6 months to a year for the utility to upgrade the transformer, and it's not easy and it's not cheap. So not only there is a cost associated for increasing the size of the transformer, which utility charges. The second is fixed bill of the petrol pump goes up because the sanction load is going up. So what we implemented with Indian Oil Corporation is they already have rooftop solar, and through just the software and a IoT box, which is on the side, we are able to route or harvest most of the power, and then we added battery, of course. We are able to harvest most of the solar and push it to the petrol pump operation. So now 80% of the petrol pump load is off grid. So then, it makes your grid, transmission grid, distribution grid more reliable, because now there is a big in a way, like petrol pump load is off the grid. And at the same time, this also enables 8 hours of EV charging. So now you don't have to upgrade your grid, you don't have to spend money, increase your sanction load, and yet you are able to service. Now, coming to the business model, we did a small calculation, back of the envelope calculation for the policymakers in India. If all the electric vehicles through Indian Oil, so they have got about 20,000 petrol pumps with solar, and they have got 50,000 petrol pumps all over country. So if all the electric vehicles through their petrol pumps are charged through solar, they would be generating $10 billion US every year. Is it not? And that is through carbon credits. So there is a carbon credit market. There is an element of carbon credit. So when McKinsey is talking about spending $2 trillion every year for achieving net zero goals, from where that money is going to come? So there has to be a way of recouping that money, even partially. We cannot bank on the subsidies and the grants from the governments, although it would be needed, but at the same time there has to be a change in the business model. So that's what we are creating. So Hygge Energy's patent is all about tracking of renewable energy to the consumption resource. So coming to the topic of carbon credits are a function of two things. One is how the energy is generated and where it is being consumed. So I think, Raghavendra, you touched a very good point about what are the carbon emission energy intensive operations. So heating is one of them. So we are working with a distillery in Scotland, where Sriji talked about Russian war and the oil crisis. So the heating oil prices are not only hitting the roof, but also the availability, or there is a scarcity of heating oil. So these distilleries are having a huge challenge of meeting that need. So it will not only increase the price of the Scotch, the famous Scotland whiskies, but also they are finding it very difficult to survive. So these distilleries, just to give you a magnitude, are huge distilleries, and in old days they used to generate electricity through flow of stream, because they've got a lot of water there. And now they are going back to those old days where they would be generating electricity from flow of stream. They've got a lot of wind there, and now they are putting geothermal and solar, and it all would be integrated through a battery, and they would replace their heating with a renewable energy. So not only they are able to overcome the scarcity for heating oil, but also this is creating a carbon credit revenues for this type of distilleries, and government of Scotland is promoting this. So these are some of the examples of how you are going to recoup. Now coming to like Indian Oil, right? So you just using solar where they've already invested and using it for EV charging, it would create some sort of a carbon credit. Now 10 billion, you can go wrong by 50%, but it's still $5 billion annual revenues which can be generated. So I think the government of India, and that's where I applaud them for having that vision. And now, I believe Minister of Energy or Renewable Energy is talking about having a carbon credit exchange in India. This is the right way of doing it, because that's how not only you will achieve your COP26 targets of net zero, but also you will generate your own revenues, which would not require that much subsidy or grants. And also it would help India, a country like India, to avoid energy poverty, which is very, very critical from the prosperity of the country, because we all have to, as India, we all have to grow. We have to include the villages, we have to include the towns, and we have to ensure that the progress is all over the country. Thank you again. And that's where Hygge Energy is working on. So if you guys want to connect, I'm available on LinkedIn. Please send me your invite, and I'll be happy to speak to you guys more. Thank you.